2 of Cobra Kai Season 6 has dropped on Netflix. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Let me know, what did you think about Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2, and give me that point of reference. What did you think about Part 1? How are you still enjoying the show? Do you think it's past its prime, or do you think it is better than ever? As for me, I have been a massive fan of Cobra Kai since the first episodes dropped on YouTube Red back in 2018. I watched it. I hate watched it. Like, I clicked on it assuming it was going to be terrible, and it instantly won me over, and have been a big fan ever since then. But right after, at the end of season 3, they said they were going to do 3 more seasons, and immediately I went, I think they're stretching this out. Like, I don't think there's 3 more seasons of story. And there's a lot of things that happened in seasons 4 and 5, thoroughly enjoyed and understood why they wanted a little bit more time to tell their story. But at the end of season 5, felt like almost every major plot line of the show, every major character arc had been resolved. And they started introducing things like world tournaments that felt too far detached from what I originally signed up for. Then we got Part 1. For me, that was pretty well easily the weakest set of episodes that they've ever released. And a lot of it was building off of my primary concern, which was they'd moved past, for me, what was the logical endpoint for the show. And so you're trying to come up with something else to kind of go somewhere else with it that I don't think is nearly as compelling as what they were doing in the first 5 seasons, which was all about these fathers in need of a son, sons in need of a father, mentor relationships, the Miyagi-Do versus Cobra Kai. What's the good in Cobra Kai? What was the best that came out of it, and what was the worst that came out of it, and working through that tension, bringing back the, Terry Silver, Kreese, playing all of that out. And it had been resolved. Cobra Kai had been defeated in the valley. So where can you go from there? And I just think they didn't have somewhere else that was compelling to me. And the character arcs were a lot of like going to college, and that's their motivation rather than being bullied and finding their confidence. Like, how will I get into college if I don't win a world tournament? Which doesn't actually make a lot of sense. Like, it's not a great argument. It just wasn't compelling for me. It wasn't that interesting, and it felt a lot more forced, and the karate felt even less attached to reality. Not that it was ever really grounded, but at least it was an exaggerated version of real karate, where this was like they're playing capture the flag to decide who will go to a karate tournament, which is very silly and nonsense. So the promise of Part 2 was we're getting the tournament. If Part 1 was the setup and maybe that was a little bit dull, would Part 2 win me over by getting back to the karate and the biggest karate tournament yet? Let's get started with my review. Today's video is brought to you by Factor. Just last week, we turned our clocks back for the fall. The days are shorter, and you can use your time more efficiently with Factor. Let Factor take shopping, prepping, cooking, and cleanup off of your to-do list with Factor meals. From breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Factor delivers their meals right to your front door, and they are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. Whether you like routine or you like mixing things up, Factor has you covered with 35 different delicious meals every week and over 60 additional convenience options you can add to your box, like keto cookies, pressed juices, and smoothies. I personally like to add the protein shake so I can start my day with some protein. Factor lets you do you. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well-balanced meals. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Head to factormeals.com/SeanChandler50 and use code SeanChandler50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next next month. That's code SeanChandler50 at factormeals.com/SeanChandler50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. And unfortunately for me, part 2 competes with part 1 for my least favorite set of episodes that they've released up to this point in time. And it's essentially everything that I said about part 1, just in a different context, where when you've burned through your best character arcs, that the foundation of the story at the beginning was designed to tell a certain set of stories and character arcs, and you go beyond that, you reach a point in time where you're just kind of left with cranking everything up to 11, exaggerating things, gimmicks, and that's kind of what this felt like.
All right, everybody, well, welcome back into Highway to Sea. It's good to be with you. I'm Aaron Perlman. Today, I want to begin with Cobra Kai, because we had you on for the beginning of the final season, part 1. We begin with part 2, where the gang is now finally going international. Was this a good idea to drop 5 episodes here, 5 episodes there, 5 episodes there?
And I just feel like this show has extended beyond its obvious endpoint, and it just feels like they're increasingly relying on big gimmicks, shock value, and not quality writing, not interesting, compelling character arcs. So even a bunch of this international karate tournament they're at, it comes off like professional wrestling and American gladiators, where they're standing on pedestals and they're trying to knock each other off. It's like, this isn't what karate's like. And it ends on a really shocking note. And it's not obvious at all how they're going to close this out in 5 episodes. So I have a lot of concerns. I had concerns going in, and these 5 episodes only amplified them.
That hurts my heart so much.
You still like the characters, you still like the genre, but its best was in the past.
Okay.
Or reverting character arcs, which can be even more frustrating when character did all this development and now they're back. Now they're doing what they used to do. Now they're as dumb as they used to be. Or we're rehashing the same thing over and over again. Of course, Johnny and Daniel can't get along. They keep trying to coach. They think they worked through it, but they really didn't. And you kind of seeing these cycles over and over again. And I don't enjoy being the stick in the mud about the show, because I was one of the original people getting others to watch it, saying it's actually really good. I was doing that before most people started watching the show. And so for it to kind of get to a point in time where I'm like, I don't know, I don't think it works like it used to work anymore. I still like the characters. I still like the genre. It still makes me laugh. But on a writing level, it does not work for me like it did in the past. And I've had people like, so if you don't like it anymore, why don't you stop watching it? Well, because you like the show. It's not a movie. It's like I like it. So you like the characters. You want to spend more time with them. And we have an end point. Like, I'm going to, of course, stick around to the end because it's right there. So, of course, I want to see what's going to happen at the end. But, like, at the same time, if it didn't have an end point, if they said they were doing 3 more seasons with kind of what the show's doing right now, it's the sort of situation where I would drift off. Like, I'd be like, it's just not really for me anymore if there wasn't an end point in line. Like, I loved so much of what you did, and now it's about something different. And even in my comments, I've interacted with people the last few days since posting my reaction to it. And for me, it's really obvious where they've gone would lose a lot of fans. Why it's pretty obvious to me why they completed the most compelling stuff, and now it's like this extended epilogue that feels like we've lost the plot a little bit. And so many people in the comments are agreeing with me, and so many more just really don't see my perspective at all. And even the questions they're asking, like, yeah, but did Miguel win in the end? Yeah, but who won this? Yeah, but did Hawk do this? Yeah, but did this person do this? It's like there's 2 different ways that people watch the show, which would make sense. I'm in my 40s. A lot of you are teenagers. You're in your early 20s. And so I think very naturally from the beginning, it's a show that had 2 different audiences. I watched all 3 of the original Karate Kid movies back in the 80s, quite a while before a number of you were born. And so what I get out of the show, what I resonate with, is probably quite different from what a number of you resonate with. And I suspect a lot of people that don't watch movies and TV for a living, don't review things on the internet for a living, that watch the show the way that I did, have probably kind of moved on a little bit. Not everyone, but a lot of people probably moved on a little bit simply because the show has moved on from what we originally resonated with. These strong focus on mentorships, kids finding their confidence in karate, and like just a specific way we resonate with the plots and character arcs that are resolved by now. And they haven't replaced it with a new version or the next iteration of that. It's just very different stuff about big karate conspiracies, Daniel uncovering the mystery of Mr. Miyagi, and was he so opposed to tournaments? Where did that come from? And, you know, we're talking about getting into college and kind of all the stuff that I felt was more earned earlier season, but it was the subplots rather than the A plots. It's all the A plot stuff right now just isn't interesting to me. And even like we're here for a tournament, it's a global tournament. To me, that's so overtly opposed to everything that Miyagi-Do was ever about. Overtly. Like the plot of Karate Kid 3 is Daniel's getting bullied and beat up because Mr. Miyagi won't train him for the tournament. And so, like, that's the plot of the movie. Mr. Miyagi would not train him. And he didn't even want to train him for the tournament in the first movie. Like, that was Mr. Miyagi had to be convinced. He saw what Daniel was facing, and he went, the way to overcome this for him to find his confidence is to stand up to them. That's the place to do it rather than getting bullied by a group of people. But it was a purpose to it. It wasn't, I want to win a tournament for the glory of my dojo. That is overtly what Miyagi-Do has never been about, openly so. And of course, there's a subplot of like, why did Mr. Miyagi hate it? It was because this happened. It's like, Mr. Miyagi does not oppose tournaments because of the big reveal about what he did before. It's much more than just bad things can happen or whatever. It's Miyagi-Do wasn't about glory and winning. This is not about that. And it's about legacy and strength and confidence, about all those other things. And so a season dedicated to winning a tournament feels like we've lost the plot. We've gone off the rails a little bit. It doesn't, it on a philosophical, like philosophy of the characters of the franchise, we are off the plot. This is not what Miyagi-Do is about. And so all of the plot lines ring hollow to me because we're detached from the heart of our show, the heart of our franchise, the heart of Miyagi-Do. And it's like, that's kind of so much at the core of it. Like, Daniel and Johnny have already made up and are partners. So then every time they break up, it feels like we're just rehashing something we did before. And every time Johnny's just a butthead idiot, he's reverting in his character arc. And, Tori going back to Cobra Kai, we had a whole arc to get her away from them, and then we reverted on it. And they mostly, I think the way these episodes are done, make it pretty clear that, like, I like that they didn't overcook that. That the way that it's done, somewhat positive in here, they have her in a point in time in part 1 where she's under the most stress, turns to the wrong place. Instead of opening up to her new friends, she goes back to the toxic mentor. And that's kind of the way this plays out, that she makes rash choices and she finds herself in corners that she doesn't know how to get out of. She paints herself into a corner, that sort of thing. And that's kind of what happens here. And it plays it out that way. And there's tension, but she's not rejected by the Miyagi-Do people. And they're more hurt that she didn't come to them than angry at her. I liked the way that was handled. But at the core of all of this is we gave Tori a great multi-season redemptive arc and then undid it. And when you have her as the new version of her that's not a psycho on a team with psychos that are doing psycho things, it starts to ring hollow. And you're thinking, like, why isn't Tori doing more to, like, stand up and stop the psychos? Like, she's not one of those crazies anymore that wants to assault people to win a tournament. She wants to do it the honorable way. So why is she with such dishonorable people, not standing up to them on a far greater level? And likewise, I'm blanking on the name, but the Kreese's female counterpart, they try and make her more honorable and present her a little bit more as the reasonable one that's not trying to do all the shady stuff. And once again, you kind of go, wait a minute, you're like so entrenched and crazy and allowing so much crazy and felonies to take place. And so it rings hollow for me. And just kind of, so there's just some things that I kind of liked. I liked that they gave more nuance to that character. I like what they did with Tori, but there's also that side to it of, so why aren't you like more overtly standing up against what's kind of going on here? Some people asked me, well, who's my favorite character arc? Honestly, that's kind of my problem. There wasn't anything that, like maybe Tori, because they handled it pretty well, which is cool because I was very negative on Tori when they first introduced her. And now it's like, there's some stuff there that's still kind of interesting. But like, I didn't actually really like that arc. Like the Robbie stuff, really didn't care for it. Of just like, it just felt like overcooked melodrama. Miguel's not really given much to do. Hawk and Dimitri are just bantering. It's just part 2 of what they did. Well, it is part 2, but part 2 of their bickering over going to college, and it just keeps hitting the same note over and over again. I'm going to MIT. Tell us again you're going to MIT. It just kind of keeps hitting that note over and over again. And pretty quickly in the season, it was like, why is Dimitri even here? Like, why would they, like, this is true to his character, so, like, why did they allow him to come? And he's bringing out the worst, most annoying aspects of the character while at a global tournament. Just sort of thing that always made him insufferable, and they kind of moved past it, and he reverted back to it. But, Hawk gets some moments, but he doesn't have, like, an interesting arc. There's not much that he's given here. Daniel's on a quest, and one of the things that bothered me is, like, I always had issues with the fact that felonies are committed on the show and the police are never involved. It goes to a whole other level in this season where, was it episode 2 or 3, something happens to Daniel, and it's the sort of thing where you immediately go, this is so far into the danger zone of like so unacceptable. Even on just caring about the tournament, you would come forward with what just happened. You wouldn't keep that a secret amongst your people. But also, these are gigantic felonies, with conspiracy elements to them. So multiple felonies taking place, and the police are never contacted. And like, I'm saying, don't want to get too much into the end of this, but like, how far into like violent felonies, how many people have to die and get murdered before the police get involved in resolving some of this stuff on a meaningful level? That's sort of the thing that pulls me out of it. Just like, what are we doing? And the final one I kind of want to talk about just a little bit is even the karate itself really bothered me. The show's always been exaggerated and amplified, but increasingly in that season and this season, it's moved away from an exaggerated version of real karate, real tournaments, real training, and moved into just shenanigans where you don't decide who goes to a karate tournament based off of capture the flag and tag and stuff like that. It doesn't make any sense. That's not what karate is. It doesn't in any way reflect your abilities in a karate tournament. It has nothing really to do with karate. This is nonsense. So I didn't like that. And then you see the tournament and you go, oh, maybe I guess it does make sense because they're doing tag team like this is professional wrestling. And we're doing Royal Rumbles with all these people coming in and out. If you're my age, you remember a show called American Gladiators. A lot of this tournament reminded me of American Gladiators where they're up in platforms like, you got to stay on the platform. The first person to fall off the platform loses. That's American Gladiators stuff. It's, TV competition, but has nothing to do with real karate. Tag team is not real karate. And so we moved away from real karate into just like totally different sports. Adding to that, so much of what made the best of Cobra Kai and Karate Kid great was the tournament was the culmination of a character arc. So they'd write things in such a compelling way that you get to the final fight, or the semifinal fight for that matter. You have all these different characters, you care about their arc, and there's two different people that the outcome of that fight in the tournament is the culmination of their character arc. And for two very different reasons, you want both of them to win, and they would find some clever outcome that is satisfying both for the fight, where each of them that gets their wins or whatever, but also fulfills something for their journey and maybe sets up something that's for the future. And I didn't feel like we had any of that in this season. Like maybe a little bit Robbie, some of the journey that his setbacks and payoff, like there's that, a little bit of that for him. And the rest of them, it just wasn't that. And what they do with the actual final fight, and not wanting to go into spoilers, but like we don't really resolve this gigantic world tournament. And it turns into just utter chaos in a way that I didn't think was satisfying at all. I didn't think it made any sense. And it left me on so many different dangling plot threads, rivalries set up. And I feel like any of them was resolved in an interesting manner. And it just goes so far into just shock value by the end of it. Unearned shock value by the end of it. So we talk about one of the most famous phrases with television is the show's jumped the shark, referring back to Happy Days. Gigantic show, started in the 70s. And halfway through its run, there's an episode where the Fonz jumps a shark. Water skis, jumps a shark. And the show is still popular afterwards. People still like the characters and scenarios, but that's what people look back and they go, that's when the show lost what originally made it so beloved. And instead of relying on just great, fun character interactions, it became about the gimmicks and the shenanigans and the antics. Still a hit show. People still watched it after that, but it had lost something. For me, after season 5, Cobra Kai jumped the shark, where this is still fun to spend time with the characters, still like some of the martial arts, the humor lands. I'm invested enough that I want to see the end, but we've jumped the shark. We've played out the stuff that I originally signed up for, and so we're left with antics. An investigation into the mysterious past of Mr. Miyagi that'll have huge reveals. Felonies being committed. Soap opera twists. Returning villains. Turning karate into American Gladiators and Fear Factor and American Ninja Warrior. It just turns it into this whole other thing. Because we've moved, we have to go bigger. We have to go more extravagant. What can we do that tops what we did before? But to top what we did before, we just have to go outside the realm of what the show was originally about. That's what Cobra Kai has turned into me, and it's disappointing. I know a lot of you still love the show, and I think it's because you enjoy the show on a different level or for different reasons than I do or did. You're still getting what you wanted, and maybe you're getting a better version of what you were into. But that's a detachment from what the show was before and what I resonated with. And that's very disappointing to me. So I'm glad there's people who still enjoy it. I'm also very glad that there's only 5 episodes left, because I think the longer it goes on, the more frustrated I am. And 5 more episodes, I'm sure we can land the ship in a way that like, okay, cool. Yeah, it reached a point where it peaked and then it went downhill, but I still enjoyed the show. And if it kept on going, if there's a couple more seasons, I probably would just check out, because it's not for me anymore. And that's heartbreaking, as one of the people that originally was like, people, check it out. It's actually really good. I did my part to get people excited for it, and I've lost that excitement now. That's disappointing. So let me know what you guys thought below. I know a lot of you still love it, and a lot of you feel the same way as me. Have that discussion down below, respectfully, as always. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.